Some people say renting a home is throwing money away, while others say paying a mortgage on a home is more expensive, so why would I pay more to live in the same place? I'll just rent. There are two sides, and depending on your situation, one may make more sense than the other. This video is two segments. One is the positives and negatives of renting, and one is the positives and negatives of owning a property. As always, I'm Adam J. Bell, part of the Sea and Sky real estate team here in Vancouver, and my job is to advise people on the potential real estate opportunities they have. We're gonna start with the renting side of things, and the first positive we can take a look at is that it usually costs less to rent a place than own a place. And that's mainly because renters only have one responsibility, and that is to pay their rent. They don't have to pay taxes, maintenance fees, or take care of the property like at all. They also don't have mortgage insurance or anything related to a mortgage since it's just a rental. That reason alone is enough of a reason for a lot of people to just rent forever instead of owning a place. It does cost more per month. The second positive of renting is that it can't change drastically. You know, when you have a mortgage and the Bank of Canada decides to raise interest rates to help curb inflation, that's what happened in the last year. Mortgage payments went way up and people had to pay a lot more per month. But since the government protects renters, you can only increase your rent by a certain percentage every year if you're a landlord. Monthly payments when you have a mortgage can go up a lot, but when you're renting, they can't change drastically. And that's a positive because it gives you some comfort. The third one of the most obvious ones, is when you're renting, you have the freedom to move around. Most leases are 12 months, maybe 6 months, maybe even a month to month, which means if you're someone who likes to move around, maybe you want to live here for a month and then you want to go live in a different part of the city, you can do that. A lot harder to do when you actually own the place because moving costs a lot of money. When you're buying and selling properties, that is, because there's fees. The fourth positive, something we kind of touched on before, is that your landlord is responsible for the upkeep. It's not you when you're renting. So if your tap starts leaking under the sink, you as a renter don't have to pay for it or worry about it, contact anyone, because the owner of the property has to do all the work. You tell them there's something wrong going on, they have to call, they have to set up appointments, and they have to pay for the plumber to come fix the issue. And that's not just for the sink, that's for like everything in the apartment. Overall, everything is simpler when you're renting instead of owning. Now on to the negatives of renting, because there are some. Some people say you're throwing money away when you're renting, which I don't totally agree with. I don't think it's a good way to put it because you're paying for the opportunity cost to live somewhere. But with that said, if you did have a mortgage, some of that mortgage payment would be going to the equity and actual ownership of that property. So it could make you more money in the future if your rent, a little bit of it was going towards the mortgage. So really it's just that you're not building towards anything by paying rent. The second negative is that you can't really alter your space. You know, if you own a place, you can renovate it, replace the countertops, make it your own. But if you're renting, the most you can do is really put some art up on the wall, you know? Even painting a wall, even if you're gonna paint it back when you move out, that can sometimes be something that the landlords just don't want you to do and you're not allowed to. And that means no DIY projects, no customization at all, which is something I really love and I look forward to doing in my home. Our third negative, this can be a really big one for some people, and that's that you have to answer to someone when you're renting. You do not own this place, you have a landlord. And if you have a landlord that you just don't get along with, or someone who just isn't a great landlord, that can cause a lot of issues in your life. Like if they're annoying you, constantly wanting to enter your apartment because they don't trust you. We've all heard horror stories of like bad landlords, and that's because they are out there. There are more positives and negatives of renting, but let's stick to the important ones, the top of mind ones for now. And let's move on to the positives and negatives of owning a place. The first positive of owning your place, and honestly the most popular reason people buy real estate, is because every time you make a payment, like your rent, but you make a payment to the bank, some of that money goes towards the equity that you have in the property, because eventually one day you're gonna have paid off the whole thing and you won't have any payments to make it all. If you're renting, you obviously just pay rent forever. Our second positive on this list is that you own the place. You can do whatever you want here. I mean, I could replace this fireplace with a golf mini putt if I wanted to because I own the place. I don't own this place. This is a studio. I rent this place. So I can't do that. Overall, you can do almost whatever you want if you own an apartment or a house. There's still building regulations and like neighborhood regulations, but you have a lot more freedom if you actually own the place. Now the negatives of home ownership, and at the end I suggest you look at the negatives and the positives because different people's situations, honestly, some might be bigger deals than others. First, negatives, you have a lot more fees, right? It is more expensive to pay a mortgage for a place than it would be to rent the place. Things like property taxes, maintenance fees, loan interest payments, heating, heating, hydro, and more. And those you always have to pay if you own the place. A second negative, which we kind of touched on before, is that your payments can change drastically. Like we said, the Bank of Canada, if they change interest rates, your payment can go from $2,000 a month to $3,000 a month. And what if $3,000 a month is your maximum? What if the next couple months the interest rates go up even farther? And that's actually a reason some people had to sell over the last year. They couldn't afford their new payments. And that can't happen if you're renting. The third negative is it costs you more out of pocket than renting a place. It just costs more to own a place. But again, you need to remember that that extra money is going towards the equity in the property. But when you take out a mortgage, and here's the negative part, a lot of your monthly payments go towards the actual interest on the loan. So if you do have a mortgage, you're gonna pay a lot of money to the bank, not for actual ownership, but just kind of almost like renting from the bank for a certain amount of time. Here's one more big positive to renting, and honestly a lot of people's arguments as to why renting is better than owning. Let's say I want to live in this apartment and I decide to rent it because paying a mortgage just costs more per month. Why don't I rent this place, and with the leftover savings, instead of having that more expensive mortgage, I just invest that extra money that I'm saving. Let's say the mortgage would cost $1,000 more per month than my rent. We're going to invest that $1,000 every single month, and at the end of the year we'll have $12,000 invested. And if we put that in a good and safe investment, let's say we get 10% back on our returns. Good job. Now let's say during that year, the real estate market went up 20%. So your money would have been better invested if you put it into real estate instead, because it would have went up 20%. But we don't know what the real estate market is going to do, or the stock market, so you never really know. Final note on this is that this is the reason real estate is such a popular investment, because it's really safe compared to a lot of investment opportunities out there. Real estate isn't extremely volatile like stocks can be, and it's also regulated by the government, so that adds a layer of safety. So if you are a savvy investor, it is possible to beat the real estate market by investing the money that you saved from renting, but it could also be riskier. And if you don't want to have hands-on investing, you can put your money in real estate, and maybe that makes more anyways. Just some food for thought. In a place with a growing population like Vancouver, a lot of the time what people say is that real estate can be like using a yo-yo on an escalator, as funny as that sounds. Short term, it can go like this, but long term, it usually goes up. So I encourage you to save this video if you don't know which option is right for you yet, and come back and use it as a tool when the time is right. If you want to chat about your specific real estate situation or any opportunities, all our contact info is below this video. Subscribe if this video is helpful, or if you want to see more Vancouver real estate videos or tours, and I'll see you in the next one.